nanohub.org.
Online simulation, and more for nanotechnology.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Future Directions in Nanomaterial Synthesis workshop. We really hope that this is going to be very exciting and stimulating. We are very, very interested to hear all the distinguished speakers and to have interactions and thoughts based on these discussions. So I am Sam Tawfick. I'm one of the organizers of the workshop, and joining me on the panels, you can see their videos, Professors Elif Ertekin, Lili Sai, and Arend van der Zande. We're all from the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champagn, and it happens to be that we are all from the same department of Mechanical Science and Engineering. This workshop is sponsored by the Nanomanufacturing Node, which is a project funded by the National Science Foundation to develop computational tools on the platform called the NanoHub. You can see these icons on the bottom of my first slide. If you go to our website, you can learn more about these projects. So the goal of this workshop is to bring you people from around the world who are interested in data-driven approaches for 2D material synthesis. We know that this intersection is new. We have seen it in chemistry and other areas, how data-driven approach can accelerate synthesis. For 2D materials, it's maybe a little bit behind, but we hope to push it forward. So the objectives of this workshop are: one, to collect new insights and lessons learned related to the synthesis of various nanomaterials with emphasis on 2D materials. Number two, to create a framework for collaborations among groups in these areas on synthesis and complementary computational tools. And three, to present the efforts of the Network for Computational Nanotechnology Nanomanufacturing Node, the project which is sponsoring the organization of this workshop. So your organizers are, as I mentioned, myself, Sam Tawfick, Elif Ertekin, Lili Sai, and Arend van der Zande. We all do research related to nanomaterial synthesis, both experimental and computational, for a variety of applications and properties. So the title of our workshop starts from rational design. This is the great framework of material science that we all like to work with. The synthesis structure properties relation. We apply to 2D materials. We use physical and chemical insights and try to do something interesting, useful, and important. The new framework that we would like to combine with the existing framework is the data-driven framework. In this case, we imagine that you can create a loop, a closed loop between experiments. These can be physical experiments done in the lab or numerical experiments, data obtained through these experiments, and applying machine learning tools to be able to advance synthesis or advanced properties that you're interested in. And the goal of this workshop, and many of you have the same goals, is how to combine these two frameworks. As you can see in this slide, the exact combination of the two frameworks is still in development, but we are all confident that they can be combined somehow. And this can lead to greatly accelerating material development. So we are lucky to have very distinguished speakers in both of our days. These speakers were selected after long discussions between the organizers as well as with the speakers themselves. We believe that they each bring something very unique and special to the discussions towards this collective goal. So the collective goal is, by the way, not necessarily the data-driven research, but accelerating the deployment of nanomaterials into real applications, the impact of nanomaterials, the impact of 2D materials. So second day speakers, or we have 6 speakers on the second day. We have a break in the middle of the day of the second day, and this break will be during the inauguration of the next president of the USA. So what is the Graphene-ResQ project? So Graphene-ResQ is short for Graphene Recipes for Synthesis of High Quality Materials. It's a project that started maybe 3 years ago. The co-PIs of the project are myself, Elif Ertekin, and Professor Placid Ferreira. We have a number of very hardworking graduate students, undergraduate students, and support staff that work together on making these tools, these computational tools, these software tools, planning for the tools, planning for the release of the tools, debugging, creating new versions, and so on and so forth, as you will get to learn about them. I will very quickly describe what is the Graphene-ResQ project and what are the tools, what is the motivation to create this project. So most of you are familiar with what is a chemical vapor deposition process. For example, if you're using a tube furnace, the process involves controlling the temperature, the pressure, the gas flow rates, and having what we like to call the recipe, which is the details of how you change the temperature and gas concentration and pressure and location of the sample and many other variables to be able to synthesize the material that you're interested in. In the beginning of the project, we decided to try to count the variables and try to create a standard way of representing any CVD process, including both controlled and uncontrolled parameters. So for example, the ambient environment in the lab is an uncontrolled parameter perhaps, but we represented it in our variables. Dew point in the lab, the types of the exact type and concentration of the gas that you're using. All of these details about the furnace size, diameter, tube diameter. We tried to capture everything, and we found out that you have these 200 variables per sample that can almost completely describe a CVD process and make it as exactly reproducible as possible. When you do CVD of a nanomaterial, in this case, we take as an example graphene, you typically have some characterization data. The characterization data can be SEM images, can be other measurements, can be spectroscopy, can be electrical properties, any type of characterization data. But you typically have so much data. Even in a lab scale experiment where the sample size is small, the data size is huge. We also like to think a little bit about the timeline of development of a typical 2D material such as graphene. So as we all know, graphene in 2005, was isolated. All of the properties started being measured and published. This is the beginning of the exciting area of 2D materials. The first CVD of single layer graphene in a controlled fashion on copper was in 2009. So it took about 4 years to get to this point. This crystal size or the domain size of the graphene was small in 2009. By 2016, it became inch size, which is pretty big. By 2018, we started seeing reports of almost continuous single crystalline growth of graphene. So these are great developments on the lab scale, but this is still not at the scalable manufacturing, fully optimized level, which requires things like cost effectiveness. How do you deal with the catalyst? How do you reduce the cost of the catalyst? How do you reuse the catalyst? How do you get clean materials? How do you have a sustainable manufacturing process? How to achieve great repeatability, and so on and so forth. So the Graphene-ResQ project was developed to be able to try to translate this framework of experiment data machine learning into a platform. Because we realized that we have so many different parameters, we have 200 parameters, we realized that if you really want to have enough data to apply machine learning, we needed to build a platform that can allow users to submit recipes, allow collaborators, allow crowdsourcing. That way, we can really greatly accelerate the development of the material. So we can go beyond what a single lab can do to many labs, can be 5, 10, 100 labs, who knows. And we created this closed loop, which is shown on the right-hand side here, where users can submit data to the database. The data is searched, analyzed, and then new graphene growth recipes can be suggested by a machine learning approach so that you can go into this closed loop fashion of moving quickly. I want to point out here that we chose graphene. Although we know that graphene is maybe one of the most advanced 2D materials, if not the most advanced, in terms of how well we understand its synthesis conditions and the current crystal size that can be synthesized and so on and so forth. But we found that it's a great platform to work with because of all of these things, because it's already understood. So at least we're not trying to solve, of the two problems at the same time. One problem is how to create this robust framework to accelerate the development of the material. And the other one is to even try to understand and search on how to even synthesize decent quality graphene. So to get into the details a little bit, the Graphene-ResQ project is a number of tools which are shown on the left-hand side, which can be used in your own terminal, on your own machine, or can be used on the NanoHub platform remotely without having to install it on your own machine, as well as a database, which is shown on the right-hand side. The database on the right-hand side lives on a server. It has both raw data, including the synthesis data, as well as characterization data. And it has analysis, which is obtained using our analysis tools, which are shown on the right-hand side. The database can be published, and when a user submits synthesis information, they get a unique identifier, so it's like publishing a paper. You get a GOI, and this GOI describes the information that you submitted, although it's a simple recipe. On the left-hand side are some of the tools we have developed. The submit tool, which are the tools that allow you to actually submit your data. There are different modes of submitting data depending on how much data you have, how many recipes you have, and you want to submit. You can submit Raman files, image files at this point, as well as the recipe data and your own info. We have an OSCM, which is short for awesome. Awesome, you will get to learn about it if you attend the training on the 4th day. It's an operating system for cyber manufacturing. It allows even simpler integration between your synthesis equipment and the database. So we have capabilities that allow you to automatically send all of your data from your LabVIEW controlled equipment in your lab, if you have such lab, or microcontroller equipment, directly to the cloud, directly to our database. We have the query tools, which allow you to search for recipes. We believe that this is one of the most useful tools that we will have in the future. Currently, as you all know, if you want to search for recipes to produce, let's say, graphene or MOS2, the way you do it is you use Google, you search for papers, you start searching for recipes in the paper and in the supporting information. And really the papers are focused on the science behind these recipes, but in some cases, you understand the science, you just want the details of the recipes, and you find some of the details in this research article or paper. The idea of the database is to make this much more systematic, so users in the future can simply download recipes which include all of the parameters. So that makes it fully reproducible. And then we have analysis tools like a Raman fitting tool. This is a simple Raman fitting tool, but it allows perfect integration with our database. And then we have an image tool that is based on existing image processing algorithm in libraries like Python, but we adapted them for Graphene specifically. So these are some snapshots of how the tools look like. So this is, for example, the submit tool. It has types of information that you can submit. We have the query tool where you can start seeing, you can put a specific search. In this case, we're searching for recipes by catalyst. So people who use palladium as a catalyst. And then these are all the recipes that appear for palladium. And then this is a snapshot of our image analysis tools, where you can create what we call masks to isolate what is graphene versus no graphene. We have manual mask creation. We have statistics-based methods for mask creation, as well as we have machine learning tools that can detect directly, for example, graphene based on scanning electron microscopy images. And then we have the awesome integration, the operating system for cyber manufacturing, that allows the customer in this case is someone who would like a synthesis experiment to be performed. This can be the PI in a lab working with the students or researchers in the lab, or it can be a PI in one lab working with students in a different lab, requesting specific recipes, and these recipes, when executed, the information can be uploaded directly to the cloud, which goes to the database. So this was the last slide on the Graphene-ResQ project. As I mentioned, this was a great team effort with many graduate and undergraduate students and faculty and staff members who worked together on creating this platform. So with that, I would like to thank you all and welcome you to this workshop. And I hope you find it all useful and interesting.